They expected human mercy. Instead, they met unshakable resolve part. The stars looked different from the bridge of the UEA Defiant. Captain Alan Miller had served on patrol ships for 15 years, but he never got used to how the stars changed with each new system. The Tau Ceti system glowed with a yellowish light, not unlike Earth's sun, but somehow more distant, more alien. "Captain, we're picking up unusual readings at the edge of the system," said Lieutenant Sophia Warren. Her voice was calm, but Miller could see the tension in her shoulders. 15 years of working together had taught him to read her well. "Define unusual, Lieutenant," Miller said. "Energy signatures unlike anything in our database, sir. 7 objects, moving in formation, approaching at high speed." Miller nodded and turned to his communications officer. "Broadcast standard greeting, protocols on all frequencies, and alert the mining outpost on the outer moon." The bridge fell silent as the crew waited. The objects grew larger on the main screen. They looked like massive crystals, each one at least twice the size of the Defiant. They glowed with an inner blue light that pulsed in a steady rhythm. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Ensign Paul Davis, his fingers moving quickly over his console. It's in English, sir." Miller raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge sounded metallic and flat, as if created by a computer. "Human vessel. This system now belongs to the Vraxian Collective. Your colony on the 4th planet will surrender immediately. Resistance will result in demonstration of superior force." Miller exchanged a glance with Warren. First contact scenarios were covered extensively at the Academy, but nothing prepared a captain for the real thing. "This is Captain Alan Miller of the United Earth Alliance vessel Defiant. Tau Ceti is a recognized human colony system under the protection of the UEA. We welcome peaceful communication with your people, but we do not recognize your claim to this system." There was a long pause before the reply came. "Your historical records indicate humans value life above territory. You will surrender this system or we will demonstrate our power." Miller leaned forward in his chair. "If you've studied our records, you should know that humans do not respond well to threats. I suggest we discuss this matter peacefully." The communication ended without response. Miller turned to his tactical officer. "Status of the alien vessels?" "They're moving toward the outer moon, sir, toward the mining outpost." Miller felt a chill run down his spine. "Contact the outpost. Tell them to evacuate immediately, and get me Admiral Donovan at Central Command." Before Warren could relay the order, a flash of light filled the main screen. Where the small mining outpost had been, there was now only debris floating in space. "Survivors?" Miller asked, his voice tight. Warren's face was pale as she checked her readings. "None detected, sir. All 32 miners. Gone." The alien transmission returned. "This demonstration proves our superior force. You have 6 hours to evacuate all human presence from this system. Further resistance will result in the destruction of your colony on the 4th planet." Miller's hands gripped the arms of his chair. He had faced pirates and rogue colonies in his career, but never an alien force willing to kill innocent civilians without warning. "Sir," Warren said quietly, "they're waiting for our response." Miller stood up and walked to the main view screen. The crystal ships hung in space, beautiful and deadly, and "They've studied our history but understood nothing about us," he said. "Lieutenant, prepare a jump to Earth. We need to warn Central Command." "And what response should I send to the aliens, sir?" asked Davis. Miller's face hardened. "Send this. You have declared war on humanity. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on your souls, because we will not." The jump to Earth took 3 days. Miller spent most of that time in his quarters, writing personal letters to the families of the 32 miners killed in the attack. Each letter took him nearly an hour to compose. Each one felt inadequate. Warren found him in the ship's mess, hall late on the 3rd day, staring at a cup of cold coffee. "We'll be reaching Earth in 6 hours, sir," she said, sitting across from him. Miller nodded. "Have you figured out why they attacked us?" Warren placed a datapad on the table. Based on their communication, I believe they expected us to surrender. After they demonstrated their power, their understanding of human psychology seems flawed. They confused mercy with weakness, Miller said. A dangerous mistake. The most dangerous, Warren agreed. They think we avoid conflict because we're afraid. They don't understand that our restraint comes from knowing exactly what we're capable of. Miller picked up the datapad and scrolled through Warren's analysis. You think they've never faced serious resistance before? It's just a theory, sir. But their tactics suggest they've always achieved quick surrender through intimidation. They don't appear to have strategies for prolonged conflict. The captain smiled grimly. Then they're about to receive an education. When the Defiant reached Earth, Miller and Warren were immediately taken to UEA headquarters in Geneva. The massive building hummed with activity as military personnel rushed through the corridors. Admiral Kate Donovan was waiting for them in the central command room. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes were sharp as she studied the Defiant sensor logs. 32 civilians dead, she said when Miller finished his report. And they expected us to simply abandon the system after that? Yes, Admiral, Miller replied. They seem to believe that humans will always choose to avoid conflict, even at the cost of territory. Donovan's expression was grim. A fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. We don't seek war, Captain, but we've never shied away from it when necessary. She turned to a large screen showing the Tau Ceti system. The crystal ships had positioned themselves around the colony planet, waiting for a surrender that would never come. The Security Council is meeting in 1 hour, Donovan said. Every available ship is being recalled. We haven't faced a threat like this since the formation of the Alliance. What are your orders, Admiral? Miller asked. Donovan looked at him with steel in her eyes. The Defiant will need repairs after your long jump. Once that's done, you'll join the response fleet. These Vraxians need to learn that while humans may extend mercy to those who deserve it, we never lack resolve when our people are threatened. Miller left the command room. He heard communications officers broadcasting emergency messages to every human ship and colony. The wheels of war were turning, and he knew the Vraxians had no idea what was coming for them. They had expected human mercy. Instead, they would meet unshakable resolve. They expected human mercy. Instead, they met unshakable resolve. Part 2 news of the Vraxian attack spread across Earth and its colonies within days. Images of the destroyed mining outpost and the names of the 32 dead miners appeared on every screen. The response was swift and unified. In shipyards across the solar system, workers took on double shifts. Retired military personnel reported to bases without being called. Civilian ships were fitted with weapon systems. Earth was preparing for war. Admiral Kate Donovan stood before the United Earth Alliance Council, her uniform crisp and her expression severe. Behind her, a large screen showed the crystalline Vraxian ships hovering around Tau Ceti. They believe we will surrender rather than fight, she said. They've interpreted our diplomatic nature as cowardice. This is a critical mistake on their part. The council members listened in silence. None of them had ever faced an alien threat before. Most had built their careers on peaceful expansion and trade. What do we know about these Vraxians? Asked Counselor Frank Hayes, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. Dr. Richard Palmer stepped forward. The xenobiologist had spent the last 3 days analyzing the limited data from the Defiant. From what we can tell, the Vraxians evolved as a hive-oriented species, Palmer explained. Their ships operate in perfect synchronization. Their records show no concept of prolonged warfare. Conflicts in their history were settled quickly, through demonstrations of superior force, followed by immediate surrender of the weaker party. So they expected us to give up after they killed those miners, said Counselor Elena Rodriguez. Precisely, Palmer nodded. They likely calculated that 32 deaths would be enough to force our surrender without needing to threaten the larger colony. Admiral Donovan tapped her screen, and the image changed to show Earth's defense fleet. We have 76 battle-ready ships. Another 45 will be combat-ready within 2 weeks. The Vraxians have demonstrated superior technology, but their tactical thinking is flawed. What are you proposing, Admiral? Asked the Council. Chair. A direct response. We hit them hard at Proxima Centauri, where our intelligence suggests they will strike next. Show them that humans don't surrender after the first punch. We hit back harder. The vote was unanimous. Operation Iron Resolve would begin. At the Space Academy in Colorado, graduation ceremonies were canceled as entire classes received emergency commissions. Young Officer Devin Clark stood in line with his classmates as they were assigned to ships bound for the front lines. Clark, Devin J. Assigned to UEA Valiant, Tactical Officer, called out the administrator. Clark felt a mix of pride and fear as he collected his orders. The Valiant was a destroyer, part of the 7th Fleet that would defend Proxima Centauri. He had trained for this, but the reality of facing an alien enemy was something else entirely. As he left the assignment hall, his instructor, Commander Gregory Patel, stopped him. Clark, a moment, Patel said, his dark eyes serious. Sir, I served with your father on the Resolute. He would be proud to see you now. Clark nodded. His father had died in an accident 5 years ago, but his legacy in the fleet remained strong. The Vraxians expect us to behave according to their understanding of mercy, Patel continued. They are about to learn a terrible lesson about human resolve. Remember your training, but also remember why we fight. To protect our people, Clark said, yes, but also to show that humans extend mercy from a position of strength, not weakness. Never forget the difference. 3 days later, Clark boarded the Valiant. The ship was older than some in the fleet, but its systems had been upgraded and its crew was experienced. Captain Laura Bennett greeted the new officers with a brief speech. We ship out at 0600 tomorrow. The Vraxians think they understand humanity, based on historical records. They think we value life so much that we won't fight. They're half right. We do value life. That's exactly why we will fight with everything we have. The Valiant joined the 7th Fleet near the jump point to Proxima Centauri. Through the viewport in his quarters, Clark could see dozens of ships forming up, cruisers, destroyers, and carriers. The sight was both impressive and sobering. His roommate, Lieutenant Olivia Martinez, sat on her bunk cleaning her sidearm. First time in a combat deployment? She asked. That obvious? Clark replied. Martinez smiled. I felt the same way during the Titan Rebellion. It passes once the action starts, then training takes over. Were you scared? Of course. Anyone who says they aren't scared before battle is either lying or crazy. The trick is to use that fear, not let it use you. Before Clark could respond, the ship's alert system activated. All hands to battle stations. Prepare for jump sequence. They moved quickly to the tactical station on the bridge. Captain Bennett stood at the command post, reviewing final reports. Intelligence indicates the Vraxians will attack Proxima Centauri. Within the next 12 hours, she announced. We will arrive first and be waiting for them. Admiral Donovan sends this message to all ships. Show them what humanity does to those who harm our people. The jump sequence began. Clark felt the familiar pull in his stomach as the ship entered the jump point. For a brief moment, reality seemed to bend around them, and then they were there. Proxima Centauri, humanity's oldest extrasolar colony. The colony world glowed blue-green on the main screen. Around it, the 7th Fleet took up defensive positions. Now they would wait. They didn't wait long. 8 hours after arrival, the sensors detected energy signatures matching the Vraxian ships. 15 vessels detected, Clark reported from his station. Larger than the force at Tau Ceti, Captain Bennett nodded. They're escalating as expected. Alert Admiral Donovan that the enemy has arrived. Admiral Donovan's voice came through the comms from her flagship. All ships, weapons, free. Remember those 32 miners. The Vraxian ships approached in a perfect formation, a diamond shape that maximized their firepower. They sent a single message to the human fleet. Surrender this system or face destruction. Admiral Donovan's response was immediate. Fire, the Yuan. Human fleet opened fire first, breaking the perfect Vraxian formation. The battle had begun, and with it, humanity's message was clear. They had expected human mercy. Instead, they would meet unshakable resolve. They expected human mercy. Instead, they met unshakable resolve. Part 3. The Battle of Proxima Centauri began with a flash of light as hundreds of human missiles streaked toward the Vraxian fleet. Lieutenant Devon Clark watched from his tactical station on the Valiant as the enemy ships moved to avoid the attack. "They're breaking formation," he reported to Captain Bennett. 3 ships taking evasive action to the left flank. "Target those 3, Bennett ordered. "All forward guns." The Valiant shuddered as its main guns fired. On the screen, one of the crystal ships took a direct hit. Cracks appeared in its shining surface, but it didn't explode as expected. "Their hulls are stronger than we thought," Clark said. "Noted. Keep firing." Across the battlefield, the human fleet engaged the Vraxians in a chaotic dance. The alien ships moved with perfect coordination, but they seemed unprepared for the aggressive human tactics. They had expected a defensive posture, not an all-out attack. Admiral Donovan's voice came through the comms. "All ships execute pattern Delta. Draw them away from the colony." The human fleet split into 3 groups. The Vraxians followed the largest group just as planned. This left their flank exposed. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Donovan nodded to her weapons officer. "Launch the Nova missiles." 5 specialized missiles shot toward the exposed side of the Vraxian formation. When they detonated, they released a powerful electromagnetic pulse that disrupted the alien systems. 3 of the crystal ships went dark, drifting helplessly in space. The human fleet converged on them immediately. The battle continued for hours. Human ships took heavy damage. The Vraxian weapons could cut through shields with ease, and their crystal hulls were difficult to breach. On the Valiant, Captain Bennett received reports of casualties from all decks. A hit to the engine room had killed 5 crew members. The medical bay was full. "Captain," Communications Officer Lisa Reed called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vraxian command ship." Bennett nodded. "Put it through." The metallic voice filled the bridge. "Your resistance is impressive but futile. We will spare your remaining ships if you surrender this system." Bennett looked at Clark. "What's your assessment, Lieutenant?" Clark studied his tactical display. "They've lost 4 ships. We've lost 11. But their formation is broken, and 3 of their vessels are heavily damaged." Bennett smiled grimly. "Send no response. Instead, relay to Admiral Donovan that the enemy is offering terms." Admiral Donovan's reply came quickly. "No terms. Launch Phase 2. Across the human fleet, bay doors opened. 1,000 smaller missiles launched toward the Vraxian flagship. They were too many to intercept, and the crystal ship took multiple hits. The Vraxian commander tried again. "Why do you not accept mercy when offered? Why do you continue when defeat is possible?" Donovan's response was simple. "Because we are human." The battle entered its 10th hour. Both sides had taken heavy losses, but neither would retreat. The humans fought with a fury that seemed to confuse the Vraxians. Their tactics became increasingly desperate. On the Valiant, Lieutenant Martinez worked frantically to keep the weapon systems online. A console exploded nearby, sending a crew member flying across the bridge. "Shields at 20%, she reported. "Main guns still operational." Captain Bennett pointed to a damaged Vraxian ship on the screen. "Focus all fire on that target. Let's remove it from the equation." The Valiant and 2 other destroyers concentrated their fire on the wounded alien vessel. Finally, the crystal hull shattered and the ship exploded in a brilliant flash of blue light. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, but it was short-lived. A direct hit rocked the Valiant, throwing everyone off balance. "Damage report," Bennett shouted over the alarms. "Deck 3 is breached," Martinez replied. "Emergency bulkheads holding. We've lost port thrusters." Clark helped a fallen officer back to her station. "Captain, the Vraxian ships are repositioning. I think they're preparing to jump out of the system." Sure enough, the remaining alien ships were pulling back, creating distance from the human fleet. "They're running," Bennett said, surprise evident in her voice. "They're actually running." Admiral Donovan's voice came through again. All ships capable of pursuit form up on my position. The rest of you protect the colony. This isn't over yet. The Valiant was too damaged to join the pursuit group. Captain Bennett ordered their ship to take up a defensive position near the colony, as the pursuit fleet jumped away after the retreating. Vraxians, the crew of the Valiant, began counting their losses and tending to the wounded. Clark found Martinez in the medical bay, getting a cut on her forehead treated. "We won," he said, sitting beside her. "Did we?" she asked. "We lost 17 ships, over 5,000 people. But we saved the colony, and we proved something important." Martinez nodded slowly. "That humans don't surrender. More than that, we proved that the Vraxians fundamentally misunderstood us. They thought we would choose safety over fighting. They thought mercy was weakness." The ship's communications officer, who was getting her burned arm treated nearby, spoke up. "I recorded the final message from the Vraxian commander before they retreated. Want to hear it?" She played the recording. "We do not understand. Our studies of human history showed that you value preservation of life above all, yet you continue to fight when surrender would save your people. Explain this contradiction." Clark smiled. "Did Admiral Donovan send a response?" "Yes," the officer replied. "Just 3 words. Study us better." The aftermath of the Battle of Proxima Centauri was felt throughout human space. News of the victory spread quickly, but so did the casualty reports. Families mourned their dead, but there was also a sense of pride. Humanity had faced its first interstellar threat and had not backed down. Admiral Donovan's pursuit fleet followed the Vraxian ships to the edge of human territory before returning. The data they gathered was invaluable. For the first time, humans had a heading toward Vraxian space. In her report to the UEA Council, Admiral Donovan was direct. "The Vraxians will return, and in greater numbers. They still don't understand us, but they now respect our military capabilities. We need to press our advantage." The Council unanimously approved her plan. Operation Frontline, a direct assault on Vraxian territory. The counterattack would begin within a month. As the human fleet regrouped and repaired, Captain Alan Miller received new orders. His ship, the newly commissioned heavy cruiser Retribution, would lead a special mission behind enemy lines. Their objective: gather intelligence on Vraxian defenses and, if possible, find a way to make the aliens understand that their initial assumption about humanity was their greatest mistake. Miller read his orders twice, then looked up at the stars, visible from his quarters. The Vraxians had expected human mercy. Now they would face human resolve. They expected human mercy. Instead, they met unshakable resolve part. Fore Captain Alan Miller stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his new heavy cruiser. The ship still smelled of fresh paint and new metal. Its systems were the most advanced in the human fleet, perfect for the dangerous mission ahead. "All systems check complete, Captain," reported Lieutenant Sophia Warren, who had followed Miller from the Defiant to his new command. "Stealth systems are operational," Miller nodded. "Crew status?" "All personnel aboard and ready. Dr. Palmer is settling into the science lab." The addition of Dr. Richard Palmer, the leading xenobiologist studying the Vraxians, made this more than a military mission. The UEA wanted to understand their enemy better. "Set course for the jump point," Miller ordered. "We leave in 30 minutes. As the crew prepared for departure, Miller went to the science lab. Dr. Palmer was surrounded by holographic displays showing Vraxian ship designs and the limited biological data they had gathered. "Captain," Palmer greeted him. "Ready for our field trip into enemy territory?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Miller replied. "Have you made any progress understanding them?" Palmer gestured to a display showing a Vraxian communication pattern. "Their language is complex but logical. What's more interesting is what's missing from their communications." "What do you mean?" "No expressions of individual sacrifice or martyrdom. No concepts like dying for a cause or the greater good. Their entire communication structure assumes self-preservation as the highest priority." Miller considered this. "That explains why they expected us to surrender after they destroyed the mining outpost." "Exactly. They calculated that losing 32 lives was too high a price for keeping a star system. They literally cannot comprehend why we continued to fight. The ship's intercom interrupted them. Captain to the bridge, approaching jump point. The Retribution's mission was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate Vraxian space, locate an outpost near their territory's edge, gather intelligence on their defenses, and try to open diplomatic channels that the aliens might actually understand. Jump took them far beyond human-controlled space. When they emerged, the stars looked different again. Miller felt the familiar weight of command pressing down on him. 42 crew members were depending on his decisions, deep in enemy territory. Stealth systems engaged, Warren reported. No signs of detection. Begin long-range scans, Miller ordered. Let's find that outpost. It took 3 days of careful searching. The Retribution moved slowly through the outer reaches of a red dwarf system, sensors at maximum range. Finally, they found it, a small Vraxian facility on a rocky moon. Life signs? Miller asked. Approximately 50 individuals, replied the sensor officer. The facility has minimal defenses. It appears to be a research or monitoring station. Miller called his team to the briefing room. Warren, Palmer, and 4 security officers. We'll take the shuttle down under stealth. Our goal is to access their computer systems and gather intelligence without detection. Dr. Palmer will attempt to download their language database to improve our translation capabilities. The team suited up in the latest stealth armor. Each suit could bend light around it, making the wearer nearly invisible. They boarded the shuttle and left the Retribution, approaching the Vraxian outpost from below the moon's horizon. The landing was smooth, and they moved quickly toward the facility. Up close, the Vraxian architecture was even stranger. All angles and crystalline structures that seemed to grow from the moon's surface rather than being built upon it. There, Warren whispered, pointing to an access point. That looks like an entry port for maintenance. Dr. Palmer worked quickly with his portable computer. Their security systems are advanced, but predictable. They rely on patterns rather than random elements. The door slid open silently, and the team entered the facility. Inside, the walls glowed with the same blue light they had seen on the Vraxian ships. The corridors were wider and taller than human standards, confirming Palmer's theory that the Vraxians were larger than humans. This way, Palmer said, following readings on his device. I'm detecting what appears to be a data center. They moved through the facility, freezing whenever a Vraxian passed nearby. The aliens were tall with elongated limbs and crystalline growths on their shoulders. Their movements were precise and economical. In the data center, Palmer connected his device to a Vraxian terminal. This will take a few minutes. Keep watch. Miller and Warren stood guard while Palmer downloaded data from the Vraxian systems. The information flowing across Palmer's screen showed ship movements, communications, and what appeared to be military planning. My God, Palmer whispered, his eyes wide as he read the translations. Their entire strategy was based on the assumption that we would surrender immediately. They had no contingency plans for prolonged conflict. That's why they retreated at Proxima Centauri, Warren said. They had no protocols for a battle that lasted more than a few hours. Palmer nodded. They literally cannot comprehend why we continue to fight when casualties mount. According to their models, we should have surrendered after losing the first ship. Miller looked over Palmer's shoulder. What about their homeworld? Do we have its location? Yes. Coordinates are coming through now. And more. Their defensive capabilities. Fleet strength. Palmer's voice trailed off as he studied the data. This is strange. According to this, they've called every ship back to defend their home system. They're expecting us to attack there. Are they right? Warren asked. Miller nodded. Admiral Donovan is planning Operation Frontline now, a direct assault on their territory. Then we need to get this information back immediately, Palmer said. The Vraxians are preparing for a last stand. They believe this is their final opportunity to force our surrender. As Palmer disconnected his device, an alarm blared through the facility. Red light replaced the blue glow in the corridors. We've been detected, Warren said, drawing her weapon. We need to move. They ran through the corridors toward the exit. Two Vraxians appeared ahead holding crystalline weapons. Warren fired first, dropping one. The other fired back, hitting her in the shoulder. Miller pulled her behind cover. "I'm fine," she gasped, though blood soaked her suit. "Keep moving." They fought their way to the exit, Palmer and the security team providing covering fire while Miller helped Warren. Outside they ran for the shuttle. More Vraxians pursued them, their weapons sending crystal shards that shattered against rocks around the humans. Miller got Warren aboard the shuttle first, then covered the others as they boarded. A crystal shard grazed his arm as he jumped inside. The shuttle lifted off immediately, racing back toward the Retribution. In the shuttle's small medical bay, Miller checked Warren's wound. "You'll need surgery when we get back to the ship." She gripped his arm with her good hand. "Did we get what we needed?" Miller nodded. "Thanks to you, we did. You saved the mission." "Then make sure they understand who they're dealing with," she said through gritted teeth. Back on the Retribution, as Warren was taken to medical, Miller and Palmer reviewed the stolen data. It confirmed their worst fears and greatest hopes. The Vraxians were technologically superior, but tactically inflexible. They had no concept of the kind of prolonged, determined resistance humans were capable of mounting. "With this information, Admiral Donovan can plan a decisive assault," Palmer said. "We know their weaknesses now." Miller stared at the star map showing the location of the Vraxian homeworld. "Then it's time to end this war. Time to show them exactly what human resolve means." They expected human mercy. Instead, they met Unshakable Resolve Part 5. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Vraxian space. 142 ships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. At its center was Admiral Kate, Donovan's flagship surrounded by cruisers, destroyers, and carriers. Captain Alan Miller stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the fleet prepare for the final jump. Lieutenant Sophia Warren stood beside him, her arm in a sling from the wound she had received during their mission. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Miller said over the secure channel to Donovan. "Excellent," the Admiral replied. "The intelligence you gathered has been invaluable, Captain. We know their defenses, their tactics, and most importantly, their thinking. Today we end this war." The plan was direct but careful. The human fleet would emerge from jump points around the Vraxian homeworld, immediately engaging the orbital defenses, but they would specifically target military installations while avoiding civilian areas. "This isn't about revenge," Admiral Donovan had told the fleet commanders. "It's about showing strength and resolve while demonstrating true mercy, not the weakness they mistook for mercy." Miller turned to his crew. "Jump sequence in 2 minutes. Remember why we're here. The Vraxians killed 32 of our people because they thought we would surrender rather than fight. Today we show them who we really are." The jump was perfect. The human fleet appeared around the Vraxian homeworld exactly as planned. Below them, a blue-green planet shimmered, surrounded by a defensive grid of satellites and stations. "Enemy ships detected," Warren reported. 83 vessels moving to intercept." Miller nodded. "All weapons ready. Target military platforms only." Across the human fleet, ships opened fire on the Vraxian defenses. The aliens responded immediately, but their formation was rigid and predictable, exactly as Dr. Palmer had suggested it would be. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Donovan directed the battle with calm precision. "Groups 2 and 4, press. The attack on the Northern Hemisphere defenses. Group 3, draw their ships away from the main defense grid." The human ships moved with a flexibility the Vraxians couldn't match. When the aliens committed to one area, the humans would strike elsewhere. The battle plan had been designed to exploit the Vraxians' inability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. On the Retribution, Miller directed precision strikes against key defense platforms. "Target that command node," he ordered, pointing to a large crystalline structure on the main screen. The Retribution's main guns fired, hitting the node directly. It shattered, disrupting the coordination of the defense grid in that sector. "Captain," Warren called out, "the Vraxian flagship is hailing all human vessels." "Put it through," Miller said. The same metallic voice they had heard before filled the bridge. "Human fleet, you have demonstrated superior tactical ability. We offer immediate and complete surrender. Please cease attack on our homeworld." Miller looked at Warren. "They're surrendering already? We've only been fighting for 6 hours." Dr. Palmer, who had joined them on the bridge, nodded. "As I suspected, their models predicted total defeat once we breached their defense grid. In their mind, continuing to fight is illogical once defeat becomes possible." Admiral Donovan's voice came through on a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, cease fire. The Vraxians have surrendered unconditionally." Across the human fleet, weapons went silent. The Vraxian ships also stopped firing, moving into a non-threatening formation. "Just like that?" Warren asked. "We win?" Miller nodded slowly. "They never understood us. They thought we would surrender immediately to save lives. When we didn't, it broke their entire model of conflict. Now they're surrendering to save their own people because in their minds, the outcome is already determined." Admiral Donovan sent another message. "Captain Miller, your ship will accompany mine to the surface. The Vraxians have requested formal surrender talks." The landing party consisted of Admiral Donovan, Captain Miller, Dr. Palmer, and a small security team including Lieutenant Warren. They were met by a group of tall crystalline beings, the Vraxian leadership. The main chamber was vast, with walls that curved up to form a dome overhead. The Vraxian prime communicator, larger than the others, with more elaborate crystal formations on its shoulders, stepped forward. "We acknowledge your victory," it said, its voice sounding more natural in person than over communications. "Our analysis was flawed. We did not understand your species." Admiral Donovan nodded. "That was your greatest mistake. You studied our history but missed its meaning." Dr. Palmer operated the translation device, ensuring clear communication. The Vraxian Prime seemed genuinely confused. "If you possess the strength to destroy us entirely, why did you not do so? Is this not the purpose of war?" Lieutenant Devon Clark, now assigned to the Diplomatic Corps due to injuries sustained at Proxima Centauri, stepped forward. "You mistook our desire for peace as weakness. You expected mercy born of fear. Instead, you found our resolve, and now you experience mercy born of strength. That is the true nature of humanity." The Vraxian Prime's crystals changed color, from blue to a softer green. "This concept is new to us. We have always assumed that victory in conflict means the destruction of the enemy." Admiral Donovan shook her head. "For humans, victory means achieving our objectives. We fought because you threatened our people. Now that threat is ended." The terms of surrender were clear. Complete demilitarization of the Vraxian fleet, reparations for the humans killed in the initial attack, and integration into the human-led interstellar community. As the formal documents were prepared, Captain Miller and Lieutenant Warren stood apart from the others, looking out through a crystal window at the Vraxian city beyond. The building sparkled in the light of their red sun. "Beautiful in its way," Warren said. "Hard to believe we were at war with them just hours ago." Miller nodded. "They're not evil, just different. They couldn't understand why we would fight so hard when surrender would have saved lives in the short term. And now? Now they're beginning to understand the paradox of humanity. We can be both unshakably resolved and genuinely merciful. That's what they failed to account for." The surrender ceremony was brief. The Vraxian Prime pressed its crystalline hand to the document, leaving a unique pattern that served as its signature. Admiral Donovan signed for Earth. "A new chapter begins. Today," Donovan said. "One where our species learn from each other rather than fight." 2 weeks later, the human fleet began its journey home. The war had lasted less than 2 months from start to finish. 32 miners had died in the initial attack, and over 7,000 military personnel had been lost in the battles that followed. But the defeat of the Vraxians had opened up a new era for humanity, proving they could stand firm against any threat. On the observation deck of the Retribution, Captain Miller and the newly promoted Commander Warren stood watching the sunrise over the Vraxian homeworld one last time. "Do you think they understand us now?" Warren asked. Miller nodded slowly. They're beginning to. They expected us to be either ruthlessly cruel or easily defeated. They never considered we could be both unshakably resolved and genuinely merciful. Warren smiled. That's the paradox of humanity, isn't it? The very thing that makes us so dangerous, our determination, is also what allows us to show true mercy. And that, Miller said, is the lesson they'll never forget. As the ship turned toward home, Miller thought about those first 32 miners whose deaths had started the war. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. Because of them, humanity had not only proven its strength to the galaxy, but had also demonstrated the true meaning of mercy, not a weakness born of fear, but a choice made from a position of strength. The Vraxians had expected human mercy. Instead, they had met unshakable resolve, and in the end they had found both.